evening, folks. We're actually coming to you from the kitchen. And the kitchen is a difficult place for me because I have to be careful not to make a mess. Y'all all know cooking outside, you can drop stuff on the ground, you can do stuff like that, and it's okay. When you do that in the house, it's not so much a good thing. We had a request from a viewer, actually, about spaghetti squash. So we're going to touch on spaghetti squash in this video and a couple other little things. We're going to do some random stuff within this one video. So let's talk about spaghetti squash. You typically buy spaghetti squash, and I've already prepped this a little bit, folks. You buy a spaghetti squash and it looks like this. And you take a knife and you cut it in half. Then you'll need to take a spoon and scrape out the seeds and all the little pieces around the seeds. Now, folks, part of this video that we're going to cover today is not throwing things away. Within this spaghetti squash, you end up with the seeds. And they're just like pumpkin seeds, folks. So, I like to take the seeds out. You can roast them, you can put them in salads. You can do a lot of different things with them, folks. And so, try not to throw that away. A lot of times we discard stuff and we throw stuff away that we don't have to. So back to our spaghetti squash, we're going to end up with two halves, sort of like that. They don't have to be spotless cleaned in here, just fairly good, all right? We want to take a small dribble of olive oil. Now, a lot of people have issues with spaghetti squash. I have a lot of people tell me that it gets mushy, they don't like the texture, and things like that. To me, the problem with spaghetti squash is people have a tendency to overcook it. And just like a pasta, an al dente pasta is better than an overcooked pasta by any means. So what you need to do with this is be sure that you don't overcook this. You want it to still have some texture, some bite, and some pull on it. If you overcook it, it's going to be mushy and it's not going to be pleasant to you to eat. There's the other good thing about it in the house. We have a place to wash up really quick. Folks, when you put this in your oven, and you can also do this in the Dutch oven, I'll go over that in a minute. But when you do this in the oven, don't use a good cake pan, folks. Because this olive oil and some of the stuff that's going to come out of here will stain up a cake pan. So use an older cake pan. I typically start out with the two pieces upside down. And I'm going to go, and the sticker can be on it because we're not using this part. But I typically go like this for about 10 minutes and I flip them over. And to me, when I know they're ready, you can squeeze them like this and they have a little squeeze to it. Just a little, not a whole lot. And that's where we want to take them out. We're going to slip this in the already preheated oven and let that be going. But again, you can do that in a Dutch oven. You can turn them upside down, put them inside a Dutch oven, put your coals around the Dutch oven like you would anything else, and you can cook them in the Dutch oven. But that's going to go for about 20 minutes at 350. Now, while that's going, we're going to do and assemble a plate for you with our spaghetti squash. We're going to need a sauce. So in this skillet, we have 2 sticks of butter. All right? And we're going to bring that up. The sauce is going to kind of be a brown butter sauce, folks. So we want to let that butter melt. While that butter's melting, we're going to talk about some of the things that are going to go in it. One of the things that we're going to put in this sauce is broccoli stems. Yeah, you heard me right. Little slivers of broccoli stems. How do we get this? All right, people buy broccoli, and I prepped this, folks, for you. So they buy broccoli, and you got a bunch of florets up on top of several stems like this. We cut the florets off like this, and we use that for our cooking. But we typically throw this in the trash. Folks, to me, this is almost a better part of the broccoli than the florets, to me. The way you get these, take a mandolin. Don't use the store cut end or the farm cut end. Use the end where you cut your florets off. And just take it in a mandolin and gently go through here. Watch your fingers and all of that. And you're just going to keep doing this until you end up with a bunch of small pieces of broccoli. This tastes just like the broccoli. And folks, you're going to get various different sizes depending on if you have branches and things on the florets. But this is something that's very good to put in any dish. They're very good quick pickled. I like them a lot in salads, just like they are right there. All right, so our butter's starting to melt down. So to that butter, we're going to put half of a Vidalia onion. And you want to do a fairly coarse chop, not something very fine, because we want some texture to this sauce because we are using spaghetti squash. And this is about 2 cups of a shiitake mushroom. Again, a fairly coarse chop. And then we're going to add our shavings of broccoli. Now this is, folks, this is the shavings off of one bunch or bundle, or I don't know what the correct word is, of broccoli that you buy at the store. Now, while this kind of goes a little bit, we're going to talk about a couple of different things. And I hope y'all notice Emmett's with me today, keeping me straight, trying to do his part. But let's talk about reusing things like the broccoli stems we talk about. You also have cauliflower stems. You have many things that you need to think about that you throw away that can be used in everything that you do. Stuff like olives. We did a dish the other day where we had chopped olives and olive juice, or the olive brine, in that dish. Once you get the olives out of there, you can keep the liquid. This liquid is very good for seasoning things and making salad dressings and other stuff, as this being a base. It will tend to get salty, so be very careful with that. You can use jalapeno juice, caper juice, pickle juice, bread and butter pickle juice, and all of that can be a good base for salad dressings or sauces. Another thing that works good for sauces that many people don't think about is jelly or jam. This happens to be orange marmalade. All right, but you can use grape, various other things. Putting these in a saucepan and getting them loosened up is a very good base for any type of sauce, especially like pork. If you're doing a pork loin and you want a sweet sauce, an apple sauce or peach sauce or something like that, you're going to put on the pork loin. The sauce can very much start with a jam. Now they're sweet, so you got to put a little vinegar, a little salt and stuff in them, and you can make that work. But the cost of groceries and things today at the store, we need to make sure that we utilize and we capitalize on everything that we get. And in the world we live in today, we have a tendency to throw a lot away. And a lot of what we throw away can really turn out to be a very good dish. The last thing on that topic is this jar. People laugh at me when I pull this jar out, folks. This was an empty spice jar. I don't know what was in it originally. But what's in it right now, I can't really tell you. This is a mixture of all the little odds and ends that end up in the bottom of your spice bottles. You always end up with that little bit in that paprika, that little bit in the pepper. You end up with all these things. I combine them in here and I save them. And I use this to flavor a lot of different dishes. Sometimes I get this to where this is my most favorite spice. It's just out of this world great. And I have to remember it never can be duplicated because I don't know what all went into this. But this is a good way of not throwing things away, keeping a little bit and making sure. We all have had grandparents and parents and stuff like that that didn't throw things away. And we need to get back in the habit of not throwing things out, folks. Now, our sauce is kind of coming together just a little bit. And to that sauce, we're going to add a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of black pepper, a crushed clove of garlic, and a tablespoon of dried oregano. Now, a tablespoon seems like a lot, folks, but dried spices don't have the same pizzazz as fresh spices. This happens to be dried. I don't know how long it's been in the store, but the tablespoon of dried oregano probably has the same potency, might be a good word, as a teaspoon. So we're going to put 1 tablespoon in there. And if I know which drawer the stuff is in, we're going to give this a little split and a stir. And again, we want to let this butter kind of brown up a little bit, and we'll let all this come together. If you want a little more liquid, if you want a little more liquid in your dish, add a little butter to it. The reason I'm doing butter, folks, is butter, it makes a hearty, nutty sauce for stuff like that. Spaghetti squash has a unique flavor, and I love that flavor. I like spaghetti squash better than I like spaghetti noodles. All right, but spaghetti squash, typically people eat it because they want to be healthy and they want to stay away with the carbs that are in pasta, and this is a good way. So if you don't want to use butter, you can use olive oil, you can use some other type of sauce that's more healthy if you like that. But today we're using this butter sauce because this is I like that on the spaghetti squash really good. So Emmett said he needs to clean his hands up after working in the kitchen. So we're going to get all this stuff put together, and we're going to come back in a little bit and we're going to plate this up for you folks. Hey folks, welcome back. We got the spaghetti squash out of the oven, and we've got our sauce just about ready. It's got a little bit to come together, and we're going to show you how the spaghetti squash. I've had trouble saying that today, but that's what I mean, folks. Yeah, you got to watch your pan. Your pans really get ugly if you use a good pan, so try not to use a good pan. All right, Lisa, you might have to bring the camera in just a little bit so the folks can watch me burn my hands. But this is what your spaghetti squash is going to look like right here. And you want it to be a little soft where it just breaks, but not anymore. You want it to have a lot of moisture in it. I like to take a fork or something like that and just come in here and just go to pulling. Just like you'd pull a pork, like you'd scrape the inside of a pumpkin, however you want to do. And we want to get all the spaghetti squash to come loose. You don't want to push it very hard. You want to try to keep it airy because it's naturally going to stick together. It's not pasta, folks, but it's going to have the good texture that we were looking for, and it's not really mushy at all. You can see how it comes apart real easy. And if it's done good, you don't want to over coat this with olive oil or anything that's going to add moisture to this and make it mushy. I can't emphasize that enough, folks. It's just something that you need to be careful to not do. You'll enjoy your spaghetti squash a lot more. All right, folks. So see, it's going to come really clean down inside that squash. All right, I'm going to set that here, and we're going to plate this plate up for you. I've got the other half of the spaghetti squash that I've already put together, and we've got it all loosened up here on the plate. And we're going to go get our sauce. And I'll make sure y'all have this recipe, folks, because this is really a good recipe, and I really like it. And we want to take some of the mushrooms, some of those broccoli stems, and a little bit of that onion, and kind of scatter it out on top of here. And then we want to get some of that butter that's down here in the bottom. And we want to be sure we get that drizzled all over the top of this spaghetti squash. And be careful in these enamel pans, folks, when you use metal. I know I've got a metal spoon inside this nice pan, but be very careful when you do that. The last thing we're going to do to that is, most people would say put Parmesan or something like that. Alright, this happens to be a peppered coated fontina cheese. I like fontina cheese. It has a good bite to it for me. We're going to grate a little bit of that over the top of this. It's a soft cheese. It's not a real hard cheese, but it's got excellent flavor. Excellent. And Lisa, this is what the folks are going to look like. A nice plate of spaghetti squash. And no, Emmett, this is not yours. So folks, be creative in what you do. Things at our stores today are really expensive. You know, the price of meat and the price of everything has gone up, out of sight. You can't find some things that you typically find in the stores. But like we said earlier, try to utilize everything you can in every way that you can. Remember, when you buy any condiment, such as salad dressing, just remember that when you buy that Italian salad dressing, that can also be a marinade for chicken, it can be a marinade for pork, it can obviously be a salad dressing, but you can make a sauce out of it. So that one thing can expand the whole food horizon for you and help you find things that are unique and that are your own. So folks, as we end this day, we end every video we got with enjoy your food.